the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the July 17th Fishers City Council Meeting. We do not have any announcements tonight, but we do have a proclamation, and I'd like to go ahead and read that if that's okay. Meyer Najum has been in our community for 30 years, and about 24 or 25 years ago when I first started in engineering, I had a full head of hair. And but I worked with you guys, and I don't remember exactly which projects, but I know that they always went very well, and it's always been a pleasure to work with you back during those days, and that's the reason why you've grown, and since all those years you've been in Fishers, it's a pleasure to not just welcome you, but welcome you here tonight, but then welcome you on this great accomplishment of 30 years. You're going to hear a lot of whereases here in a minute. City of Fishers proclamation. Whereas local firm Meyer Najum Construction has reached an important milestone in its company history, and whereas Meyer Najum Construction has demonstrated strong and philanthropic community advocacy for many years in the Fishers community, and whereas Meyer Najum Corporation and their team members make a profound difference by contributing their time and talent to many important community causes and organizations, and whereas Meyer Najum Corporation has constructed many Fishers projects which stand as a lasting and visible impression on their presence as a respected member of the Fishers business community, and whereas Meyer Najum Construction has served as a catalyst for community development and corporate citizenship within the City of Fishers as well as throughout Hamilton County, and whereas the City of Fishers promotes the importance of community advocacy and participation and proudly recognizes Meyer Najum Construction as an organization that embraces the responsibility of community participation, and whereas Meyer Najum has been widely recognized as a leader in job site safety and business sustainability, building sustainable communities, therefore I, Scott Fadness, Mayor of the City of Fishers, do hereby proclaim July 7, 2017 as Meyer Najum Construction Day. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You had more hair too?
What's that? Did you get it to those guys? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, any presentations?
Nope.
Okay. Eric, you want to give an update on the Finance Committee?
Sure. The Finance Committee met last Wednesday, and we are recommending items tonight on the council agenda 11, 12, 25, 26, and 28 for your consideration and approval. One of the items we discussed, and we had a presentation last week, was from Elliot Holcomb, who is the, what is his title? Chief Technology Officer? Is that his title now? Elliot?
Yes.
He is heading the Business Solutions Group, and they're tasked, along with hired consultant KSM, to provide modernization and improve technology to add and increase efficiency among city staff for both the moderate and the long term. And I think also take the opportunity to Oscar Gutierrez, last day was Friday, and I'd like to recognize him and all his efforts as city controller for the city of Fishers, and also take a moment to recognize Lisa Bradford, who has replaced him, and the committee looks forward to working with her in her new role. So congratulations. And unless anybody has any questions, that concludes the finance report.
Anything else? Great, thank you, Eric. We have two items on the consent agenda. Are there any changes or a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by John. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. First item, number 7, request to approve resolution adopting the fiscal plan for the Culp family property annexation.
Are these
And
all,
yeah.
excuse me, David, I'm sorry, are these all
You can ask the
voluntary
second.
annexations, and are these all fiscal plans that are just going
Correct.
from there, we're just gonna rehash?
Correct.
Chris, can I make a motion to approve
7, 8,
all
9.
3 and then vote on them separately? Okay,
That'd be
I'm gonna make a motion to approve all 3 and vote on them separately.
Okay. We say it that way, Chris, or should it be state the number and second?
So, yeah, it's a motion to
A motion to approve
approve
items 7,
resolution.
8, and 9.
That's fine.
Okay, for item 7, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, made by Pete, seconded by John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then for number 8, Pete made a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Todd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And for number 9, Pete made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll move to
Great
number...
presentation.
One of the best. Thank you, Taylor. Number 10,
He'll be back on.
Number 10, confirmatory resolution of the City of Fishers designated property generally located 106th and Lantern as an economic development revitalization area. Brandon?
Good evening, Brandon Dickinson, Director of Economic Development. For the record, the item in front of you is a confirmatory resolution designating the property located at 106th and Lantern Road as an economic revitalization area. As you may recall, Knowledge Services is a national information security technology group that announced a few months ago that they are going to build their headquarters here at this location and invest not less than $6.7 million in developing 1 or 2 buildings. Haven't quite designed them yet, but as part of this project, the city would be doing a tax abatement on the property. Last month, we approved, or you approved, a declaratory resolution, and so under state law, we just have to go through the confirmatory resolution item, and notice has been provided to all of the impacted taxing units. So we would ask for your approval on the confirmatory resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Brandon?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Rich. All those any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. Number 11, very similar, but request to approve resolution approving certain matters in connection with the amendment declaratory resolution for the consolidated Fishers I-69 Economic Development Area.
Lisa Bradford with the Controller's Office. This motion is to designate the site of the yard project as an allocation area. This will allow to capture the TIF revenues for it. The TIF revenues will be used to pay the debt service and the property taxes to any extent. And this is just as necessary to make sure that we capture the TIF revenues from the area.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Todd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
And 1 abstention. Item number 12, request to approve a resolution approving certain matters in connection with the amendment declaratory resolution for Geist Southeast, Geist West, and Geist North economic development areas. Again, Lisa.
Yeah. Again, this is just to amend the economic development plan, and this will allow for the acquisition of the property for the park and the creation of the park on Geist Reservoir.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Pete, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to
Opposed?
abstain on that one.
And 1 abstention. Okay, item 13. Request to approve text amendment to the UDO, plating procedures and subdivision control regulations. Mr. Davis.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Dale Davis. I'm a planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning. The next item before you was actually continued from last month. There was some plating language we wanted to make sure we got absolutely right, so we went in and took a look at that. We did change the language a little bit, but the intent is still the same as it was before Planning Commission. It was just how the words came together. This change addresses really how the plat committee would function. We did have language in the language that regulated the plat committee, but wanting to get that off the ground, we want to take a fresh look at that and make sure that it has the mechanisms we need in place. We've established an incremental plating process for commercial developments. That would fall in line somewhat with what the developers are used to, and it would make it a lot more concrete for our residents when we're presenting those developments. We bring about a minor plating process, and we've also cleaned up other language related to noticing and just other housekeeping items. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and we recommend approval, but we would have to waive the rules and do a combined second and third reading to allow that tonight.
Okay. Any questions on the council? And is there any member of the public? I know that this went to the Plan Commission. Anyone regarding this item? Seeing none? Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Okay, thank you, John.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend the rules by John, seconded by Pete. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now,
Motion approved.
motion by John and seconded by Pete for the motion, or for the petition. All those say aye.
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 Yeah. Anybody against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 14. This is back to the Call family property. So I think we've got a couple of these. Yeah, we've got 14, 15, and 16.
Correct. Good evening. For the record, my name is Taylor Navarre. I'm a planner here with the Department of Planning and Zoning. The next three items are the three voluntary annexations that you previously approved the resolutions for. These have gone through the process, and staff recommends holding third reading and approving each annexation on a separate vote.
We've already had public hearing on these, correct?
Correct. That was held at first and second reading last month.
I'll make a motion to approve, what is it, 14, 15, and 16, is that where we're at?
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, item 14, there's a motion by Pete, seconded by Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 15, there's a motion by Pete, seconded by Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 16, there's a motion by Pete, seconded by Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Number 17, request to approve text amendment for the Vermillion PUD. Ms. Schaefer.
You're up.
Good evening. My name is Megan Schaefer, planner with the Planning and Zoning Department. This item is for a text amendment to the Vermillion PUD. Vermillion is an existing development located on both sides of Connecticut Avenue. They're looking to expand the development an additional 40 acres and also modify the development standards. So the expansion would include 94 lots. It's blocked out there in the red box. This is concept plan 1. The petitioner has also included a concept plan 2 in hopes of obtaining the remainder lot in the future. They've also added an enhanced architectural feature along lots on 101st Street and then also on the trail on the northeast side of the expanded area. In the expansion, they have also opted to activate the open space by adding a gathering spot and a trail along with the conservation area. So the development standards that are being modified are the impervious surface coverage and then also the minimum corner lot width. I would like to note that these modifications align with what has been previously developed. It has just been an oversight. And so by changing these development standards, the existing homes will now meet the correct standards, and then the subdivision will continue to be developed as it has been in the past. And Steve Harden, on behalf of the petitioner, is here as well.
Okay. So the petitioner would like to give a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner in the law firm of Faegre Baker Daniels, and I'm pleased to be here representing Republic Development. From Republic with me this evening is Mr. Larry Moon and Mr. Doug Wagner. I'll be really brief because Megan did a great job of updating you. I just did want to mention to you if you had a question about why we have option 1 and option 2 in our concept plans, and that's because as we had our neighbor meeting, kind of 2 big issues that the neighbors had. One was drainage. So as we gave the update at the Plan Commission, we did some analysis after they'd asked us to and shared with them that the drainage is going to be improved with this development. These are the property owners to the south. And they'd also asked if there was a way to be able to try to incorporate moving the ponds along the streetscape of 101st Street. And so that was the reason we had the option 1 and option 2 that were revised in your packet because we were working quickly from Plan Commission to now. And then you also saw, I don't know if this is going to, Megan, is this working tonight? Should we switch over? Yeah, thank you. So we have an option 1, which is the property that Republic currently has under contract. And when we had our neighbors meeting, Republic has met then with the property owners here that had that missing piece. And so they have reached an agreement via email, and so that is anticipated to be a purchase agreement. And so the hope is that that's going to happen and will be included. And so that property owner, the Wilshires, are here this evening, so we just wanted to say on the record as well that's the plan. So that's the explanation for those 2. Otherwise, Megan did a great job explaining it. We did have a unanimous favorable recommendation with no remonstrance to the PUD ordinance at Plan Commission. We'd respectfully request your approval tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions? Any members of the public here regarding the Vermillion PUD? Seeing none.
Motion to suspend rules and approve on second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Pete, seconded by Rich to suspend the rules. So on that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and now a motion to approve by Rich, seconded by, yes, sir.
Megan, could you put that back up? I just want to.
Sorry, Brad.
And as was reminded to us, we are supposed to be advising the council, so I want to do our job that has to do. Or the one Steve had his hands fine too, Steve.
Did you just want the concept plan up?
Yeah, the concept plan.
Okay.
And blow up the lower right-hand corner of the asphalt. Yeah, that, okay. We appreciate Mr. Hart and the developer meetings of the homeowners over here in changing their plan. We appreciate that very much. The other thing we personally appreciate is the stub streets going to the neighbor. This is Fortville, and they have checked with Fortville, and Fortville has no problem with it. So we thank you very much for doing that. Okay.
Sorry, Brad, I got a little bit too quick there. So there is a motion by Pete and seconded by Rich on the table to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And that reminds me, I just wanted to real quick, I know some of the members of the public today were at the Plan Commission, and I just wanted to apologize on behalf of the city. My understanding is this projector did not work. That one only worked, so I know it was a little bit cumbersome. This is the year that it's in the budget to get all this stuff replaced. Of course, Murphy's Law. It did not work in here, but I just wanted to apologize. I know that was inconvenient, and it wasn't meant to be, but it's getting, well, it's repaired tonight, and it'll be repaired in the future ongoing. Mr. Brigado, number 18.
Yes, good evening. Tony Bagato, Director of Planning and Zoning. This item before you is a rezone, but unlike other rezones, it's actually just removing an overlay. It's not changing the base zoning. The property is located on the west corner of 136th Street and Book School Road. There's two properties in there totaling about 37 acres. Currently, the property has, parcel 2 has a resident on it, and then the property, parcel 1, is being farmed by that homeowner. This property has been zoned industrial since the city took it over from Noblesville. Noblesville had it as industrial as well. So this has been an industrial parcel ever since the city took it over and before Limestone Springs was developed. I wanted to indicate here, when Limestone Springs was constructed, there was a substreet left in here that's been discussed at the Plan Commission level and by staff internally. So this photo was shown. Here's a substreet today. It ends, and there's a lot of landscaping that buffer the property. There's some discussions internally whether or not the road will connect at all. If it does connect and it is required for some reason, we're looking at making it emergency access only controlled by the fire department, not by the church, but only for fire access. But there may not be a road there at all for right now based on some of the discussion, so I wanted to point that out early. Again, highlighting the buffering, there's a lot of mature landscaping between these properties and would serve to meet the buffering requirements for any non-residential use next to this development. There's a lot of mature trees and low-ground shrubs that you can't even walk between the properties in between on the side there. And then again, I want to show that this is the current zoning today under the I-1 with 37 acres. Staff's done the math that based on the frontage requirements, they can put about 10 to 12 lots in this subdivision if it was to go industrial. So it could be platted based on the base zoning without the overlay. The churches would be allowed by right, but with the overlay, the only thing that's restricted currently in industrial is a church or a nonprofit school. I want to highlight quickly, though, the other uses that are allowed by right. It would be kind of a vet clinic, gas station, self-storage, auto repair facility, animal kennels, extended stay motels, daycare centers, and then retail sales of what's called heavy retail, like farm equipment. So these are high-end kind of, we would call traffic users, and then again, highlighting a church would be permitted otherwise if it wasn't for the overlay, and then office complexes can be permitted as well. Again, I want to just highlight that that means not one development would go there. It could be 10 to 12 of these lots parcelized, and all those developments could be there. The proposal today is just to remove the overlay so that the property can be developed for one use as the church, which I-Town is looking to take this property over. Their current application on the golf drive range is actually still active. It has not been withdrawn. If this is approved tonight, staff has requested the applicant to withdraw that petition, so the other one would no longer be valid. Another thing we've talked about is access, since there is 3 approved sites by Noblesville, 1 on Brook School and 2 on 136th Street. That's why we've determined that this potential access is not needed. And again, we just want to highlight, these have already been approved by Noblesville, and this jurisdiction of the road is within Noblesville. The uses across the street for Noblesville and their comprehensive plan shows kind of a manufacturing as well. And so again, with Hamilton Town Center to the east and the residential to the west, staff believes that this is the best use that could be put in here for transition between what Noblesville has approved and in their comp plan and what we have with residential to the west. So with that, staff's prepared to answer any questions, and Steve Harden is here as representative of the church to answer other questions that I may not be able to answer.
Any questions from the council? Steve, did you have any presentation you wanted to make or on this?
Just a couple of brief comments. Okay. Good evening. Again, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a longtime Fishers resident, a member of the building committee with a number of other people here in Fishers. And we just wanted to say on behalf of the church that we appreciate the neighbors that came to the Plan Commission meeting. It's something, if you're not dealing with zoning and planning every day, sometimes it's not clear what the current zoning is of the undeveloped farm ground that might be in beans and corn one year. But so we appreciate that might be something that people had to learn and understand about. But the property is currently zoned industrial. We went through with all the higher intensity uses that were available to be built on the property today. And it's been zoned industrial for 20 plus years. And so the traffic generation we heard was a concern. But I think that hopefully as the neighbors think about it and do their own study, they'll see that the proposed use is a significantly less intense use than what they would see 7 days a week with no very high intensity retail and other things. So the church looks forward to being a positive, good neighbor. With respect to that connection, I think Tony did a great job explaining that. No one's asking for the city to make a decision on that tonight. That would have to be something that goes through the development plan stage, but the church is fine not having a connection there. And our understanding is that it wouldn't be needed for emergency access because of the multiple accesses already to the two different properties. And so if it wasn't going to be allowed for full access, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to spend the money on something that's not needed for emergency. So that would be our preference as we got down later in the process to the development plan stage to not even have any access. And the other plan would be to maintain the existing tree line. The church likes that as well. It's a buffer two ways, and so the church would be preference to do that. We've talked to Tony about how to do that, so that would be compliant with the whatever the buffer requirements would be. So with that, we would respectfully request your approval tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that is here on this matter? Yes, sir. If you could
Hello,
just
my name
state-
is Andrew
I'm
Young.
sorry.
I'm from 13482 Gypsum Way. I have lived in Fishers probably 90% of my life since my family moved here in '71, probably more than all of you combined. I thank you for your time and your attention. As you can tell, the residents of the community are very concerned about the proposed use of this property, how it will have an effect upon traffic and upon our quiet life that we currently enjoy in this quiet neighborhood. First, I would like to know why this ordinance is being pushed through on such a quick timeline. This is scheduled for a second and third reading tonight and voting by the council for this project to move forward. Why are the normal rules being suspended for this particular item?
Yeah, if you want to ask all your questions, then we'll get them answered.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, I would like to know if other properties have been considered for this church. I spent about 10 minutes of research today, found 3 other parcels that would be very good for their facility. Can we get the little thing to work down here? This is the southwest corner of 126th Street and Cumberland Road. Approximately 75 acres of land is available here. This is just west of their current location. Its members are already used to driving in this area, as well as the neighbors nearby. Traffic does flow through here fairly well with the assistance of the hired police officers. Currently, this is an agricultural vacant land. The second site that looked like it would serve the facility well is the northwest corner of 116th and Hoosier Road. There are 2 parcels of land here. This is served by a 4-lane road, 116th Street, with a stoplight with left turn signal. Also served by 126th Street, also a 4-lane road. This property is near neighborhoods, but proposed driving through those neighborhoods would not be needed, as there would be plenty of access from Hoosier and 116th Street. This property is also currently vacant and agricultural. The third property is 146th Street and Promise Road, the southeast corner. This is approximately 75 acres and is used for agricultural general farming operations. There are no neighborhoods that would be adjacent to this property. It is served by a 4-lane divided 146th Street with a stoplight at Promise Road. It would provide easy access from I-69 and State Road 37. Were these other properties even researched after the discussion at 126th and Brook School? Why were they deemed unacceptable? They would have relatively low impact on the community for a non-tax generating church facility, whereas the current proposed location at 136th and Brook School would require infrastructure upgrades provided by Noblesville, not provided by you, because that's their jurisdiction there. What benefit would Noblesville have of improving the roads for a facility in Fishers? Is Noblesville willing to spend tax dollars for an entity that is not in their district? I do also question, has Noblesville even been contacted regarding their desire for road improvements if this 136th and Brook School location is finalized? Finally, my last question is, why is the church not disclosing plans for this property? The previous location had initial plans for which community could review and comment on as it was going before the Planning Commission. Here, we haven't seen any initial plans and are unable to voice our opinions about what we would desire. I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to rebut the answers that are provided.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Darren Finney. I live at 11763 Igneous Drive, also in Limestone Springs. I actually saw one of the properties that Andy looked at or presented to you today at 141st and Promise Road or Cumberland Road. The tax value on that property is only $300,000. The tax value for the two parcels that we're here talking about tonight is almost $1.2 million. That's the revenue that you guys are losing if you let this go. But I prepared a statement, and I would like to read it to you. Good evening. There's several problems with this proposal relating to the zoning. The zoning map shows these two properties both being zoned to I-1, and I understand that perhaps we think it's been that way for the last 20-something years. However, the property cards for the two properties show one being zoned residential and the other being zoned commercial. A closer look at the property classes show that the residential is 511, R1 unplatted, and the other is 499, commercial other structure. With regard to the commercial other structure, there is in fact a similar code for an industrial other structure, which is 399, although the assessor, auditor, and the recorder chose not to utilize that code here. Also regarding the commercial property, the property card notes that its neighborhood is, quote, commercial industrial other, which brings me to my second point. The intent in the Unified Development Ordinance for an I-1 district reads that it shall be located adjacent to a commercial zoning district C3. In the ordinance foundation on page 1.3, it clarifies mandatory terms. The words shall or must are always mandatory. As such, it seems that the intent of the ordinance is essentially to enclose an I-1 district in C3 districts and not have it border residentially zoned properties. Regardless of that, though, there are no C3 zoned properties adjacent to these two properties in question. With the possible exception of the Brook School Commerce Park, which is across the street at 12547 East 136th Street, which is marked I-1 on the zoning map, but its property card also reads that it's commercial. Further, if the entire section of these two properties were zoned I-1, as they say on the map, then there couldn't be a residential use of one of the properties because there's no recorded deviation allowing it, and industrial cannot be used for residential. Since these properties literally cannot comply with the I-1 district intent, and the county auditor and recorder clearly believe them to be commercial rather than industrial, it only makes sense that the larger of the two properties is actually zoned C1 and the smaller property zoned R1. The intent for the C1 district is that it, quote, serve as a buffer between residential and more intense commercial districts. This is precisely what the larger piece of land is. Its permitted uses are also far less egregious to a residential subdivision than the I-1 permitted uses. Clearly, with the residential single home on the smaller property, it is supposed to be zoned R1. As a C1 zoned property, a place of worship would still be possible to be built. However, it seems unlikely that the church could have a 1,400 person capacity or a private school, as the district intent for C1 is to have structures that are compatible with the adjacent residential neighborhoods, and it prohibits private schools. A smaller church with less obtrusive structures and less traffic would be far more palatable to residents of Limestone Springs. This would likely ease the minds of the more than 225 people who have signed a petition against the construction of the church in this location as well. Notwithstanding some ordinance in either Fishers or Noblesville that rezoned these properties I-1, which I couldn't find today or last week, there is clearly some sort of disconnect here which could significantly impact these properties' utilization and a subsequent effect on the other property owners. If there's an ordinance rezoning these properties, I suggest that it was approved in error and request that it be reconsidered. I request that the council deny the proposal to lift the I-69 overlay from these two properties. Further, I request that the council initiate an amendment to the official zoning map as per page 111 of the ordinance foundation in order to rezone the larger property in question to C1, R1, or R2 in order to protect the residents of Limestone Springs from the dangers of the potential uses of an I-1 zoned property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Tony, can you kind of encapsulate some answers of the ones that you heard?
Yeah, just I guess to address the timing, part of the concern with the timing is we have a current application on Gray Eagle. There has to be a decision by the council either in favor or opposed to that application at the next meeting. So the rush timeline is to address if this property is adequate, you know, we can withdraw the other one and not have to bring that whole community back for a public hearing in August. Since the Planning Commission recommended approval of that rezone of the PUD, if the council doesn't act before September, that rezone will automatically be approved. So we need a decision quickly on this property, and that's given the rush timeline. And one of the reasons the applicant doesn't have any plans is because they spent 4 months developing plans for the other site, and then this came up in response to the loss of the open space on the other property, which was designated for a golf course. So losing that open space was not expected by that community because it had been longstanding as a golf course, not an industrial area like this property. You know, other properties that are available, it's always hard to speak about what's available. You may not have property owners willing to sell. Taxes may show land value, but that doesn't mean that would be the cost of property owners asking. And as a planning department, we had a request for this property, which we're obligated to process it in a timely manner and review it on this merit for this property. I'll also address that the zoning was in place before the UDO was written. The UDO was adopted, he's referring to as 2006. The zoning was well in before then. It was most likely agriculture at some point under the township, and then Noblesville made it industrial, and we kept it industrial, so the existing home is actually grandfathered in. And again, the zoning is industrial based on what it was previously in agriculture. And our UDO would apply to any new rezones going forward. We would want the industrial to be within the C3, but our code was adopted in 2006, and this property is well beyond that 20, 30 years of industrial use. And again, grandfathered. Agriculture in the township back 30, 40 years ago allowed a residential structure with farming. You know, so given that, staff again believes that this is the most compatible use for this area, given the surrounding development that will occur in Noblesville. Noblesville, again, has already approved the driveway locations on the roadway, so that's been addressed in a previous agreement with this property owner when they widened the road. And, you know, staff needs to indicate that if it did go industrial and we had a subdivision of 10 lots, that connection road that we're able to keep closed for the church will be required to be open because it is a public street that was required for connection. So now if you put in a subdivision there of industrial lots, that road will require connectivity from our engineering and safety standpoint because we don't know how it will be subdivided. So again, I think this is the best win-win situation given what they could have under the industrial zoning today.
And then, Tony, this tonight is just a request for the overlay zone, which essentially is out there to make people come in and kind of check what is being proposed. But if this were to be approved, can you kind of walk through the steps for the church on that property? Is there any interaction with the community from that point forward?
Well, everything at that point would just go through staff review and TAC. I mean, we would encourage the applicant and the church, as good neighbors, can work with them, and we can help maybe even facilitate that. But typically, once the rezone's approved, it would just go through staff level review and make sure it meets all the requirements of our UDO and our current standards. They'll be required to put in trails along 136th Street for connectivity that Limestone Springs has. They'll be required to meet all the other kind of UDO requirements. But generally, the public's not involved in that, but we can ask the applicant and if they're willing to work with them. I think given the buffering in this case, it provides a lot of issues that normally come up through construction is going to relieve those concerns, but we can work on that.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
So a level of intensity of the development, we have essentially three options, right? The potential institutional, if this process continues to approve, the current industrial usage or zoning, and then the Fisher's 2040 plan, we have, I think it's flex employment, R&D, which is also fairly intense. So from a rank order perspective, most intense to least, how would you rank those as a planner? I would say that overall, it's going to be the least impact. I mean, because you're not going to have a lot of traffic Monday through Friday. There will be short periods with the church. There'll be short periods of intense traffic, but they're going to use off-duty police officers to control the traffic there. So I don't want to say there's not going to be traffic issues at some point. When the service are leaving, they're going to have short windows of traffic being stopped with police that the church pays for. But I would say from an overall 7 days a week, it'd be the least intense use that they can have, because the other uses would usually operate at least Monday through Friday, if not 6 to 7 days a week. If they're industrial, they could be retail or on the weekends as well. And also that same rank order from a green space, open space, buffering perspective, which is the higher and best use from that lens and that perspective? Well, with this development, the church is able to keep all the buffering, which may not happen with having to open up the street with our industrial development. And then I think, given the concerns, we'll work with making sure that a lot of the landscaping around the perimeter roads is maintained or maybe even the detention ponds in a way that can help keep some open space where you wouldn't have that with a 10 to 12 lot subdivision of industrial uses. This would have more green space along the street frontage. And we still don't have yet a site plan, so we can work with the neighbors and the petitioner potentially to even front load that green space a little bit, as in the rear there's interstate, and that's it, right? Right, yeah, we don't have a site plan yet, but we can definitely encourage them to work towards meeting a lot more landscaping up front along the street. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, the only comments that I'll go ahead and add is just, I think the planning commission, certainly listened to a number of demonstrators in terms of, where their difficulties were with this site. I believe that they were correct in not wanting access going through that neighborhood, and I was vocal about that, so I think we just continue to mitigate that process. The church is amenable to it. Again, if we look at the process which has taken place on a number of fronts where the church was looking to locate and where it wants to locate now, understanding that now you're going to move a church from, a bunch of backyards into some more backyards. I get the fact that the public doesn't want stuff in their backyard, and I think Todd was going to speak really to the other parcels that were there, and I'm not going to go into any long dissertation, but most of those properties you pointed out aren't for sale, and/or they're being looked for completely different uses, and the city can't go in there and say, go buy that property. That's not what the city's there to do, even though there may be some open land. They found a willing buyer to sell them, a willing seller to sell them that property to potentially locate the church. They need to go through a process to get this done. As I continue to look at it, in this particular fashion, and I am supportive of this resolution, as long as we do shut off that road and allow emergency access only or allow none, either which way I'm supportive of it, because I think it's the best industrial solution you're going to find as a neighbor, quite frankly. And in terms of mitigating traffic, I have a high degree of faith in the fact that the mayor and his engineering department can go ahead and mitigate any and all those problems if they do present themselves as we continue to move forward. If there are problems out there, we'll figure out a solution to them. It may not happen immediately, but there will be a long-term solution to those issues. So again, if there's not any further discussion, it looks like David may have some, so I'll wait.
I was just writing down their comments.
Yep.
Did Todd?
Yeah, and I just echo Pete's point. You have to have a buyer and a seller, and, we have to look at what's presented to us, and as government, we're not going to tell somebody you need to sell your land to this person to do that. So what's presented to us are what are the best solutions for this situation, and that's what we have to look at as a body and for the community as a whole. And I'm supportive of this just because, look, anywhere you go, there's going to be people that, like Pete said, I don't want this in my backyard. We absolutely understand that. But for the use of this property, this will benefit the community locally and abroad. And I just think that this is the right thing to do. So I appreciate the research. I mean, this doesn't fall on deaf ears. We really appreciate the research. I do. You look at different land options and different things, and believe me, there's been a lot to this process for the last at least several months. I don't know how long this has been going on, but this has been quite an effort on all the fronts. And we listen to the public. I mean, we've listened, and so we try to do what's the best for our community, and so I'm supportive of this.
I just want to comment on, I don't have a problem with closing the road as long as the fire marshal will sign off on that. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Can I make one other question?
Real quick. Just one question?
Yes.
Because we've closed the public comments.
Yes. The concern that I have, the Brooksville Road from 146th Street to 136th is controlled by Noblesville. The 136th Street is controlled by Noblesville. Maryland Road is controlled by Noblesville. Are they willing to look at the impact that traffic will have on this? And how are they going to deal with this? Has anybody asked that question?
I did reach out to them. I hadn't heard back yet. I was waiting to hear from their engineering staff. All I did was look at their comprehensive plan and try to find a thoroughfare plan I did not see. But all their development in the comprehensive plan, land use plan, does show a bunch of kind of warehouse manufacturing use. So if they're going to develop like that, I would anticipate any road improvements they're going to do are going to have to be widened as well in the future. Again, before the project goes to TAC, we'll reach out to Noblesville to hear their concerns, but I haven't heard from them directly. I've just researched their land use, and it will develop on their end a lot more industrial kind of manufacturing and even some flex space as well. So it's gonna be a lot more industrialized than residential. And from what I can tell in their comp plan, if they don't change that plan.
And if that question was more geared toward public safety, I don't know exactly what you're asking there, but the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, Fishers Police, Noblesville, and our EMS and all of our public safety officials work well together, so they coordinate things extremely well. So I don't know if that's a little bent of but they do. They communicate tremendously. Okay.
Excuse me. The engineering department also did a traffic study, and it's included in today's agenda. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that, but they did not see any concerns based on their evaluation.
That was based on averages throughout a business day, not necessarily looking at peaks for a Saturday worship service.
Yeah, let me answer a couple things. First, I'm a civil engineer, so some of this is council, some of it's an engineer. Whenever you go through a TAC meeting, which is what I was going to mention, you're going to go and you're going to have everybody around the table, everybody meaning every utility and every municipality that's going to have to deal with this. So they're going to have to come and they're going to have to prove their case as far as the traffic. So you might have an average on one thing. That's what they submitted. That's what they have. But during the TAC meeting, that's when that's really debated and looked at. So if they need to go back and get more data, that's on them, and that'll be from our staff to push back and say you need to show that. So two things would happen. One is you're going to have traffic that will show coming in and out of the site. As you mentioned, it's going to be at different times, different peak times, and that's going to have different things that are on the site of which the developer would have to do. Maybe entrance lanes, exit lanes, things like that. And then you've got the long-term vision, which will work with Noblesville to make sure that their plan as well as our plan seamlessly works together. They don't have that as just an open field. They have that as whether it's industrial or something like that. So I think that if you were to look at their plan, it shows certain timeframes happening, and then they look to make sure as things develop, then as different boxes get checked, it moves up maybe some improvements that we have. But we can check through that through the TAC meeting. But two things are looked at. One is on the site, then also globally, you're right. Some of those roads are Noblesville, some of those roads are Fishers. But we do work seamlessly to look through that. And I want to make one other comment on the C3. I know when you're looking at an open ground, I'd love to have it open ground, but if it were some sort of commercial use, that's where my fear would rise. And nothing's happened there, mainly because some of the rooftops just haven't come. Limestone Springs happened, and then some of the others of your neighboring communities have happened, but it just hasn't been enough to start to have a need for, and it shouldn't even use need, to have developers look at putting in commercial at that intersection. That's my biggest fear, is 116th and Brooks School is already having issue. Everybody has an issue wherever March was, but we're going to have to fill some gaps there, and I don't want to have another something happen here, because then going west on the rest of the property, if you have commercial, then something else I think that could be negatively affecting you, even if there is a buffer or not a buffer. I think that would be my biggest fears. I don't want to have any more retail where that retail is going to close in so many years. So those are a couple comments. I don't know if that helps, but I think the TAC meeting is something. It's not just to run through, because I'm in my day job, I'm through a lot of TAC meetings, and you've got to come with all your information, and you're sitting around a table with all the different stakeholders, and that's both the engineering departments and planning departments.
Motion to suspend the rules. I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Todd and seconded by Pete to suspend the rules. So voting on that motion, all those say aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining on that.
And one abstention.
Well, we have to have unanimous approval.
And a motion by
Wait,
Todd.
whoa. You have to have unanimous approval to suspend the rules.
That's right. This is just to suspend, Rich.
Okay, so
You can go ahead and vote on the
Thank you,
suspension and then
John.
abstain from the regular vote.
And I'm in favor.
Okay, so Rich has been in favor of that one. So that's unanimous. Now, Todd, you're making a motion to approve.
Second.
Pete, second. All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
And one
Now I
abstention.
abstain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll move to number 19 now. First reading on an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance. Tony again.
Good evening. This item before you is just for first reading, amendment of the UDO.
Actually, it's really
Is
19
this the
and
open
20.
space
I
or
didn't
the
mean to cut
setbacks?
you off, but it's 19 and 20 are.
Yeah, there's two. One of them is to amend the open space standards consistent with our comprehensive plan update, and then the other one will be to amend setback standards. The open space standards are being amended. After the Fisher's 2040 plan was adopted, staff worked with both a residential and non-residential committee to actually address architecture. And through that process, independently, both committees came about, saying it goes beyond the architecture in quality development. It's really about talking about the sense of place. And so we wanted to create standards that addressed not just architecture, but community space making. So with residential, we get into talking about street frontages, and in commercial, we talk about connectivity with frontages, pedestrian kind of spaces like you saw in Delaware Commons with public amenities and common open space like parks, and obviously connectivity will be crucial. Both of these have been run by residential stakeholders as well as commercial stakeholders, and we're asking for first reading to be held, and we'll go to public hearing actually in September on these two items so we can continue to work with the commercial stakeholders. And then the setback standards one is related to issues we've had in Britton Falls, but that our UDO doesn't address any kind of encroachments into rear yards. So there's been other neighborhoods that have come in for these kind of requests as well. Not as common as Britton Falls, but we've had a few others. And so our UDO already allows certain projections into side yard and front yard setbacks, but nothing into the rear. So we're proposing any attached open structure, so it's not livable area. It'd have to be a deck, a covered patio, a patio cover, or an open sun room that's done with kind of netting and not an enclosed room that can encroach up to 50%. But we're also stating no closer than 5 feet. That addresses any kind of fire code rating concerns if there was fire issues. But most of our standards are well beyond. Even Britton Falls, the minimum we have is 15 feet, so that would be a 7.5-foot setback. So staff believes that this will address a lot of the variances we've had and give the public a way to address property improvements more efficiently. Those are the two first reading items.
Okay. Any questions for Tony? Now, is there a motion for first reading?
Yeah, I'll give it a motion for first reading, but I want to make sure that Brad's okay with this, because I think this is his setback thing.
I would like to commend Tony, the mayor, and everybody else. Every month that the Board of Zoning Appeals, 50% of the agenda or more comes from Britton Falls. Those lots are so short in the back, nobody can have a patio or anything else. But I want to qualify, Rick, we're unique, because that, as I said, is our last home, that's where we want to die. So we spend all our money there and build a patio, things like that. Being retired, we have time to sit outside and have breakfast and coffee.
You got many years ahead, Brad.
Yeah. But the problem has been, you're locked in. Once the house is built and closed, you can't expand your house. And we're here every month. So I want to commend everybody in the city for listening and coming up with a solution to help us out at Britton Falls, and it will help all officials, but more probably specifically Britton Falls. So it's a great opportunity, and I thank the staff for doing it, and I would hope that the city council will approve it next month.
To have first reading.
We've had first reading, and then just one other comment for Brad, Pete, and then Rich on the Plan Commission. I know what you're trying to drive at. I just want to make sure that we don't sacrifice the depth of a lot in order, by doing this, hey, we've changed the setback standards, so now we can keep the same lots, where maybe in the past, that should have been changing that lot a little bit deeper.
And Dave, I agree with you 100%. Those lots there should have been much deeper. 100% agree.
Yeah, just so this doesn't set the trend going forward.
Good point. I agree.
Okay.
Tony, I just have one quick question. Recently, last week, there was a little boy that passed away in a retention pond, and I have recently received some comments or feedback from parents wanting to know if there's a way to fence in the retention ponds to try to prevent, young kids from entering and drowning and all that. I didn't know if you had any additional information that I could take back to constituents on that with regard to the drainage retention ponds?
Well, it's something I'd have to check with engineering. I know it's not required. If a private community, I guess, wanted to fence it off, we wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it if it met the fencing requirements. But they also want to make sure they can still get in and do maintenance, service it.
I would, Tony, if I could jump in here, and I'm going to channel my public safety side here for a second. In their experience, most children, if they want to go to a pond, they'll find a way over a 6-foot or 8-foot fence. What we really focus on is if you want to fence in your own private yard, then, by all means, if the zoning allows, go ahead and do that. Secondly, we want to make sure we have access, public safety-wise, easily accessible ponds. And then public education and awareness has really been our focus, more so than, are you going to put a 12-foot fence around every pond, or, then most people actually like to look at the pond. So it comes down to individual decisions and then raising awareness and educating the residents as to the safety concerns that may come with those ponds.
Also, Cecilia, and Dave can talk to this from an engineering standpoint, when retention ponds were first built, they were like this. And then, of course, the first drowning happened. So now retention ponds have to be built with a shelf.
Yeah.
So if a kid walks into the water, he's got at least 5 feet there before it drops.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to the poor child, but he had to have walked further than 5 feet and fell off the shelf.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. It's good information. I'll take it back. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 21, request to approve voluntary annexation again. So
Megan Schaefer, Planning and Zoning. This is a request to hold first and second reading and hold a public hearing for a voluntary annexation at 8844 East 121st Street. I do have a location map, if that can be brought up on the screen. So we're looking at this parcel right here.
Okay.
So if you guys have any questions.
Is there a motion for first reading? I'll also have first.
You have to have a
Do
public
that
hearing.
Okay. We'll open this up for a public hearing. So those wishing to speak on this matter, please come forward if you'd like. And seeing none, please make a note that no one spoke on behalf of this. I'm sorry?
I just need to be annexed into the city so I can connect to the city sewers.
Okay.
And-
Ma'am, if you could just please state your name and
Carolyn
address for the
Hooper,
record.
8844 East 121st Street,
Great.
Fishers.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We appreciate you requesting the annex.
Anyone else? I apologize for not seeing you, ma'am. Okay, I'll close that, and please make a note that we had one speaker. So we've had first and in a public hearing, and then this will move forward to the August meeting. Anything further, Chris? Okay.
You have a motion for second reading?
Do we do a motion for second reading, or is that just, it just moves ahead and comes
We can
back,
move
right?
ahead and do second and third reading combined next
Second
time.
and third. That's
We'll
fine.
have the fiscal reading at your next council meeting, and then we'll also approve the annexation ordinance. So
Okay.
it's listed here as first, second reading, and public reading, but first in the public hearing.
That's right. Okay, item number 22, adoption of an ordinance, or to hold first reading for a property located at 9044 East 106th Street.
Good evening. Again, my name is Taylor Navarre. I'm a planner here with the Department of Planning and Zoning. This item in front of you tonight is a request to hold first reading for rezoning of a property located on East 106th Street. Seen here, if you can see it on this projector, this parcel is roughly an acre in size, located east of I-69, and this is USA Parkway here on the north side of East 106th Street. The current zoning is PUD residential. It's a single-family lot currently. It's surrounded by this Summerfield residential neighborhood, as well as the church here to the west and more residential to the south. And this is a school on the southeast corner of 106th and USA Parkway. The proposed zoning would go to C1, office commercial, which allows just a few number of different general office uses. This is the concept plan provided by the petitioner as of right now, showing they're proposing a 1 to 2 story building here. We have had discussions with them flipping the site to have the building on the west side of the lot to accommodate certain buffer yards and parking areas that would all fall under the C1 development standards of the UDO. I just want to point out the 2040 land use, future land use map here. The parcel is part of this suburban residential classification, probably due to the fact that it's zoned residential currently. It's surrounded by the employment node district here to the west and to the north, attached residential to the south, and institutional a little bit further west on 106th Street. So with that, be happy to answer any initial questions here tonight. I believe the petitioner here is here as well. And again, this is first reading. The public hearing will take place at the Plan Commission meeting on September 6th.
Thank you, Taylor. Is there a petitioner?
Chris Schulhoff. We've got 2 renderings, one a little bit larger that show, and I apologize, we don't have them 8.5 by 11, but shows conceptual plans of the site. And we flipped the building based on our initial meetings with planning. And then this shows the conceptual drawings of what the building could potentially look like. We used as an office suite concept. Ever since I expanded my building, we've been 100% full. Fisher's Office Suites has been 100%, they're constantly 100% full as well. So we're looking at the office suite concept as a potential use.
And that site plan with your left hand, the parking's next to Summerfield, but then on the site plan that you have, it's flipped. What are you proposing?
They requested that we flip it, so the building's closer to the church, and the parking would be front and back, and then they also wanted easement, shared parking with the church, and we're in talks to get that.
Because you had that, but then also even your site, and this isn't even, to be honest, this isn't a site plan, this isn't some overlay. And I'm a
Right.
civil engineer, so
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
This is not what you submit for a request. But the drive ties into even where the radius is for the Eastern Star Church. And then you don't have a radius on yours, so I mean, this doesn't even work from an engineering perspective. So I hope that's there, but I mean, this is the petitioner's packet, it's just a letter. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything, it's just that usually we get a site plan, we get something so that we know, and I've had questions from neighbors, I can't even get back to them. I didn't have even what you just showed us tonight. I don't know what that is, I don't know when that came, but if somebody wants to give it a first reading, that's fine, but I just think a lot of effort needs to go into it to get it to the point to be able to move forward.
Sure.
Just think and that would at least happen at the Plan Commission. I'm just prepping you that I'll make sure that our 3 Plan Commission members.
Yeah, well,
yeah, just for the Plan Commission piece, what I would say is to take a look at 116th between Hoosier and Brooks School as a proof of concept of what can happen in those one-off locations where we're looking at a commercial within a residential area, just as something in terms of visually of what's something that I know residents have said to me they really appreciated versus having specific types of buildings. I'm not saying to this plan necessarily approve or not. I'm just saying in general is for the Plan Commission. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
confident,
appreciate the comments of David.
I'm confident, Chris, staff can work with Chris to get him prepared for the Plan Commission.
Because there isn't even PUD text, or I don't
understand.
I don't know how to reply to residents and.
Right, I think David makes a good point. I don't think it's anything against you, Chris. I think it's probably your first go around here. I am not inclined to give it a first reading at that point in time, but it doesn't preclude you from going to Planning Commission, where you see Brad, myself, and Rich again, if you want to take it there. I think there needs to be some work done, a lot of work done, but I think if you continue to work with staff, they can obviously get you to that point where maybe it's a little bit more presentable fashion to come in there. The concerns that I have, if you do plan to move forward, it seems completely orphaned to me, just an orphaned property. And it seems doesn't even seem like it fits there. So that's a tough one for me to kind of get there. So think about that and how you want to position yourself when you go ahead and bring it forward from that future is why that's a good there and not somewhere else, right? Almost like what we just heard with the people who didn't want the church there and et cetera, et cetera. So those are my comments, but I'm not, at this point, going to give it a first reading.
Yeah, and I will not be either. Just standpoint, I think traffic's an issue there at 106th and that interchange here, making a left turn out of your proposed project, making a left turn and heading east on 106th Street is very difficult. You're one way in, one way out. I mean, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, not that, we work on it and see what we can do to come up, but traffic's going to be an issue there, right at that where you're having that building.
I'll add maybe a comment, but I don't have a problem necessarily with giving it a first reading, but what I would say is, I think Pete's point about it being an orphan or, an infill kind of location with uses that are different from that sort of commercial, so therefore there's going to be sensitivity from the neighbors. So I would encourage you to not only, which it sounds like you're speaking to the church, but speak to the neighbors. And I think I will particularly be trying to listen to what their concerns are, what sort of sensitivity you're going to have in the plan to address their concerns. I think Todd made a point about architecturally what that may look like, but there are probably a number of other concerns that they may have, and so I would want to understand what they are.
Okay. Anything else? Is that a motion, or is that?
Motion for first reading.
All right. So what that
Good luck.
means is the first reading, so it moves on to the Plan Commission, and that could be one meeting, it could be several, but I think you've heard some things to do before you
Sure.
get to that step.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 23. First reading for the Britton Falls PUD. This is Taylor again.
Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Taylor Navarre. I'm a planner here with the Department of Planning and Zoning. This item before you tonight is for first reading for proposed text amendment to the Turnberry PUD, Turnberry section of the Britton Falls overall PUD. Turnberry is generally located on the north side of East 126th Street and just west of Atlantic Road. It is Section 4A of the overall Britton Falls PUD ordinance. It covers the Del Webb, Britton Falls area, Hunter's Run, Piper Glen, as well as Turnberry here. The proposed amendment addresses two items in the ordinance. The first being the minimum living unit area, being the finished living space of the homes. The petitioner is requesting a reduction in the living area for two-story dwellings to be reduced from 2,800 square feet to 2,500 square feet, and for one-story dwellings to be reduced from 2,200 square feet to 2,000 square feet. The second portion of the request is in regards to the garage. Currently, the Turnberry section prohibits front-loading garages, and the petitioner is looking to allow front-loading garages with several commitments, one being that it would only be allowed for three-car garages, so there wouldn't be two-car front-loading garages out there. The second commitment would be that the third garage bay be offset at least 2 feet from the other bays, which is a pretty typical standard that we have in a lot of PUDs, as well as the Unified Development Ordinance. And then to limit the number of front-loading three-car garages, they're committing to allow no more than 50% of the homes in the community feature these, as well as the front-loading three-car garages cannot be featured on 2 consecutive homes. That would provide a little bit of a buffer on the streetscape there. So again, this is first reading. The petitioner's here to speak on the item, and as staff, we will continue to work with them on the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Would the petitioner like to speak?
Hello, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Adam Mears. I'm with Gradison Land Development. We're the petitioner here. Here working with Ryan Holmes, who's our builder in this project. This text amendment was born essentially out of some market factors that Ryan has found. The price point, the sweet spot, so to speak, for them has been below $400,000, and they're priced at a good good click above 400,000. They've been in this subdivision for about a year selling. The pace has been fairly slow. In order to test out the theory of price points, they actually wrote off, for lack of it, well, they wrote off some price related to lots to get their price down to the 385 range on some of the houses, and sales really picked up. So they found that the price point they really need to be in is the 380 range, and by reducing the square footage minimally as we're asking, and allowing for a third car front load with that offset, allows them to offer a large number of new home products that are attached in our petitioner's packet. Some of those haven't been 100% vetted yet. I know that for those of you who know Mark Gradison, he's pretty picky on what he allows. And as he and I went through this today, I know several of these that are in here will be removed, but due to timing, we kind of at least wanted to get them all out there first. But allowing them to offer these prices or these options will give them that ability to get that price down in that sweet spot where they can hopefully continue to sell homes. I would like to note we have spoken to both Fisher Homes and Pulte, who are the subdivisions right around us. They have no objection to what we're requesting, and we hope that as we continue to work with staff as we've done, and again incorporating some of their requests already by reducing the amount of the front load 3-car garages and also reducing the separation of these, we'll continue to work with staff as we move through this process, and hopefully down the road get this approved through Plan Commission and then back here for hopefully a second and third reading. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
What's the price point for your 2,000 square foot home?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. I can't answer that question. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Can you just have those for Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep, we'll have that information for sure.
Anything else? Rich?
I'll just add too, Adam, I haven't really had a chance to fully digest this, and, certainly with you and Mark, I'd like to further discuss what's going to happen there, but I would add that because of why there's being a request to decrease the size of the homes, I think that's going to add, at least from my standpoint, sensitivity about what that streetscape looks like.
Sure.
What the homes will look like along there. I mean, quite honestly, just because there's a market there doesn't necessarily mean, I can tell you it's going to be supported by me. I'm going to be very concerned about what that elevation looks like and such, and really truly what others in the neighborhood would like to see too. So just note that, and we'll work through it.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. And I certainly we haven't met with the neighbors yet, but of course before the public hearing we'll definitely do that as we always do, and we'll work with the neighbors and continue to work with staff and you on the Plan Commission to try to get something that everybody's happy with.
I would suggest that you reserve the chateau at the Britton Falls and come out and explain this. I live there, and offhand, I don't think Britton Falls is going to be for that. Pulte will, because they're the builder. We have unfortunately approved things in the past, and we now regret it. So we are in a situation where any changes will probably be fought by the residents of Britton Falls. And I'm only one individual, but I'm their council rep. And right now, I think you may have a problem. So I would suggest you coming out and talking to the community, or otherwise, you think I-Town had a lot of people here. Okay.
I appreciate that, and we certainly will do that. I appreciate that.
Have first reading.
First reading, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 24, request to approve 86 acres planned unit development for the Miller Ciotti PUD. Mr. Stotts?
Good evening. My name is Kevin Stutz. I'm the Assistant Director for the Planning and Zoning Department. As mentioned, this is a rezone request for 86 acres, which would be located on the northeast and southeast corner of 113th Street and Florida Road, as outlined in red there. The proposed development would allow for approximately, or will include 48 homes to be built on the north side of 113th Street. The petitioner has included the concept plan in their PUD ordinance. As you can see, the 48 homes will also have a tree conservation easement along the eastern property line. They also intend to convey the 48 acres to the south side of 113th Street to the city for the use of a public park. As a part of the request, they will also dedicate the necessary land for the planned roundabout at Florida Road and 113th Street, and the right-of-way needed for Florida Road and 113th along their frontage as well. Just to give you some timelines here, staff intends to take this to the PUD committee and the Plan Commission on September 6th, so that gives us about a month to continue to work not only with the petitioner, but to have our engineering department and our fire department weigh in on this concept plan. We will have a TAC meeting at the end of August here, where I intend to get their feedback not only on the design, but the potential to have a stub street to the north for future connections to the undeveloped property to the north. We would also like the fire department to weigh in on the cul-de-sac links, and then the engineering department to also provide comments on the entrances there to Florida Road and their proximity to the proposed roundabout. So we do intend to have more information at the Plan Commission meeting in regards to staff's recommendations. The petitioner has included architectural renderings in their packet. Again, will be shown to the PUD committee for their review and approval to be incorporated to the design of not only the ordinance, but to set the expectations for the development. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for staff, but at this time I would turn it over to Steve Harden to allow him to go over a few more details of the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden, and I'm pleased to be representing Mann Properties and Fisher Homes before you today. And from Mann Properties, Mr. Tim Stevens is here, and from Fisher Homes, Sean Sullivan, and our land use consultant from our office, India Olson, is here as well. This is merits just a little bit of backstory for you. So the development community has been looking at this property for years and years and years. It's in a great location, but there's challenges with it because all the soil tests that have ever been done show that there's rock fairly shallow under the topsoil. So that makes it challenging to put in infrastructure, to put in sewer and water, to build basements. And so some of the different ideas over the years have been, well, let's do an empty nester neighborhood where they wouldn't have basements, higher density. Does that work? Does that make sense? So we've had a lot of different discussions and different ideas about what to do there. Fortunately, nothing actually had come to fruition by the time that the town became a city, and there started to be more attention paid to what this could be and what would be the highest and best use for this area. So I thank Mayor Fadness for his willingness to meet with us and talk and to share advice and counsel well before the previous iterations of a project like this would have been filed. And one of the concerns that the city shared with us was that there wasn't an interest in seeing, even if it was the highest class, best looking empty nester neighborhood, that probably wasn't the use that was most optimal for that location. So instead of dropping the project, we started discussing about, well, what could happen here? What would make some sense when you've got the challenge with the topography? So one of the things that we learned as we had that discussion with the city was that one of the many exciting things that are happening here in the city is the north-south trail along the Duke easement that runs from 96th Street all the way up to 136th Street. And there are some of the funding's available, and there are plans in place to make that happen. One of the challenges, though, if you look back at where our site is, right in this area is the Indiana Gun Club and the power substation right here. So a challenge for the city is having a trail This could be a lot much wider than even a Monon. It's a Monon type of trail, 14-foot wide asphalt path for pedestrians and bicyclists and people pushing strollers up and down and running with them. Was to have the trail going by where there's a gun club and a power substation. So is there a way to maybe relocate that around those two existing uses to make this more appealing for the community? Plus, there's also some issues as the potential trail would cross over this low area here, crossing over the reservoir. So the city then, as we continued to work with the city to learn what was going on, there was another plan called the Geist Greenway Plan that kind of drilled down and acknowledged some of the challenges that existed and had the idea of proposing to relocate that trail onto the east side of Florida Road and try to then, in this area, and then reroute the trail around away from the gun club and away as much as possible from the power substation. At the same time, there have been continued emphasis on connectivity and parks and trails. This isn't going to show up super well here, but as you may or may not know, right in, let's see here, where are we? Right here is Geist Park, which is maintained and owned by Hamilton County. The township has acquired the land all through this area here, which is currently known as the Fall Creek Natural Area. And so there's a plan here for the township park that runs along the waterway. And so then this piece of and then we talked about the trail and the issue of trying to connect up. So what we had discussions with the mayor and the city then was encouraging, liked the idea, was to dedicate this land in exchange for park impact fees, which that agreement will be in front of you by the time we get back to second and third reading, was to dedicate this land for a park. So this will be proposed for a park, would provide the connectivity of the two surrounding parks, also provide the opportunity to bring the trail up along the east side of Florida Road. In addition, the city had already been in the process of requesting the right-of-way, about 7 acres, for the roundabout to be built at 113th and in Florida Road, right in this area. So that presented the opportunity both to provide connectivity to the existing parks, provide an opportunity to allow for the trail to be rerouted, and to make a positive use for this existing land that had challenges for what it might otherwise be used. So that's the background. That's how we came to proposing a large park that would provide connectivity. The other thing is, it's interesting, if you haven't been down to this area, there is these 4 parcels that are right down here at the bottom. That provides actual connectivity to the water. So that'll be waterfront. Not as big as the other park the city's looking at, but it does have water to be connected to, so that was another benefit. With respect to the concept plan, we appreciate Councilman DeReamer reaching out proactively. When I got your email, I thought, well, of course, you know, we're not all the way there yet, but and we also had from the staff, I think, coming from 2 different directions. So you'll see by the Plan Commission members up here, you'll see an updated concept plan looking at relocating the primary entrance to split up the location, the depth of these cul-de-sacs, and providing a connection to the north as well. We'll get more detail for everybody, but along in this area, the topography is about 30 foot deep is the ravine that's there. So we'll work with staff and the emergency response folks to see if that makes any sense to try to go through that sensitive area. There's environmental issues and just a huge, about 650 feet is the width of that with 30-foot depth, so it's pretty significant. But to the north is developable ground, which would make a lot of sense to make that connection. So we're looking at that as well as connecting this cul-de-sac to this cul-de-sac, putting the main entrance in here to reduce the length of the cul-de-sacs and provide a connection to the north. So you'll see a much better responsive concept plan when we get to Planning Commission.
Go ahead and do that there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that, be happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise,
you're talking about bringing this down here and eliminating that?
yes, sir.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Have first reading.
Motion for first reading, and Plan Commission looks like September.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 25, actually the next couple are statutory steps, but 25, request to approve ordinance approving the lease between Redevelopment Commission and Fisher's Building Corporation with respect to the yard project.
Lisa Bradford with the Controller's Office. This ordinance is the council's approval of the lease, and basically this lease will allow the redevelopment authority to issue bonds to finance project costs for the yard. The lease rentals will be paid with the tax increment financing, and if, to the extent necessary, any property taxes. And we need these to go ahead and go out and issue our bonds.
Any questions?
Question?
Is there a motion?
Second.
Can we have a motion to suspend first?
Yeah.
Second.
And I was just about to say, Chris, now we are down to 8 members.
It's okay. It's just all those that are present.
Okay.
Have to unanimously
All those
vote
in
on it.
favor of suspending, I'm sorry? All those in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye. Aye. Okay. And again, just the
Now,
ones here, right?
You're okay. Motion to
Okay.
approve.
Again,
Just-
motion by Pete, seconded by Todd for approving. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
One abstention.
And one abstention. God bless you. Okay. Lisa, you're up for Central Indiana Orthopedics.
Yep.
Similar concept.
Yeah. So basically, in accordance with the economic development agreement with the city, Central Indiana Orthopedics has agreed to construct the new medical facility and a commercial office park. And so these are to issue bonds to finance the infrastructure costs. The Economic Development Commission has recommended the issuance of the bonds. These bonds will actually be purchased by Central Indiana Orthopedics, and they're payable solely from any TIF revenues generated.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend by Pete, seconded by Todd. So this is just a motion to suspend. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Todd, seconded by John to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you very much.
Boy, I like to come in Brad's absence.
Yeah.
Brent Falls is now I-2.
And, yeah, number 27, request to hold second and third reading for the rezone of the I-1 to R2. Megan.
Again, I'm Megan Schaefer, planner with the Planning and Zoning Department. This is for a rezone from I-1 to R2, so it's of these 8 parcels, as seen here. They're currently zoned I-1 and are within the I-69 overlay, and this is a city-initiated rezone to rezone that area to R2. The existing development is currently residential, and the future land use map also identifies this as residential.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by John to suspend the rules. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's a motion by Pete, seconded by Eric to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Number 28, request to approve ordinance approving lease between the Redevelopment Commission and the Redevelopment Authority with respect to the park in the Geist area.
Lisa Bradford with the Controller's Office. Again, this proposed ordinance is to approve the lease with the Redevelopment Commission. Basically, this will allow the Redevelopment Authority to issue bonds to acquire the real property for Geist Park. And right now, the plan is the lease rentals will be paid with property tax backing. This was recommended by Finance Committee for approval.
Motion to suspend the rules and approve on first reading.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Todd. All those in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye. Aye.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Eric to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you very much. And last item, request to approve voluntary annexation of 49.6 acres, known as the Hamilton Southeastern School. Mr. Stotts.
For the record, Kevin Stutz. You are correct. This would be a request to hold first and second reading, also the public hearing for the annexation of the 49 acres. Certainly, this will be the first step in several steps that need to take place, but we would respectfully ask that you go ahead and hold that public hearing, and as anticipated that we would be back in front of you next month with the fiscal plan and third reading.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, I'll open it up for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please come forward. Seeing no one, please note that no one stepped forward. And there's a motion for first reading. I'm sorry, Brad.
That's 126, correct?
Correct.
We had Pulte donate their half right of way. I assume the school will donate their half right of way. Who's going to pay for the street?
Well, I had a feeling you'd bring that up, and I should have just mentioned in my presentation. We've just started to initiate the conversations. We shared with them the transportation plan, so they are aware of the 126th Street connection that's needed. I probably don't have the answer for you on who's going to pay for the road today, but we can certainly provide that answer to you at a later date.
Shouldn't we have made Pulte pay for half of it and then this owner pay for the other half?
I'm familiar with land dedication in order to meet our transportation plan. The answer for payment of the street, I do not have for you at this time.
We've had first reading.
Thank you.
Did you hold the public hearing? Yeah, sorry,
Yep.
I was sleeping.
Yep.
No demonstration, Mr. Zeisel.
That was it, Mr. Mayor. Anything else? No. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Pete, seconded by Todd. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.